So we have hyperbonding at the point of warning, and maybe in some aspects, and then debonding when you're actually surviving the threat. But it can't be sustained. A woman came up to me after a presentation a few years ago and said, I was, as a young woman, in the Adelaide Hills in Caravan Park when the Ash Wednesday went through. And the fire brigade came and said, lock yourself in the ablutions block, don't try and leave, wait till the fire front passes. 20 people go into the ablutions block and lock the door. What do you imagine is their behaviour as the fire goes over? Guess.
Quiet.
Complete silence. Except for a couple of people who went into the toilet cubicles and wept to themselves. Right? Complete silence, because everyone's wondering, am I going to die? Now, what she did was tried to work out how to position her newborn baby under the blanket she brought from the caravan and place her body over the top, so it's just possible the fire brigade might dig a living baby from under her charred corpse next day. So she, in a way, wasn't debonding from her baby, but in another way she was, because she was getting ready to leave it. So therefore there's an injury to attachment there and needs to be healed.
Is there a difference in prognosis for people who have bonded and or who have not debonded or not debonded to a full extent? So
if they don't debond, how will we see that?
Yeah.
How will we see it? They'll remain in social role.
Right. So these are the people that you often find are afterwards in disasters able to pick up and keep going?
Yes. Well, they may have had a debonding moment, but they may have come back into a role. That's not so much if they run around maintaining a rescuing role afterwards, they may still have debonded and be quite traumatised.
Okay.
And they probably won't process it until they come out of that role months or years later. But the real protective factor is what we saw in that police officer, where he, in the moment of impact, he hasn't debonded.
Okay.
Now, for 18 years I ran the DHS debriefing service, and some of you may be aware of how much controversy there is about debriefing, with all these studies showing that it supposedly doesn't work. Well, I can tell you that the fundamental construct you need to bear in mind is that what determines whether you're dealing with critical incident stress, for which CISM and debriefing are extremely effective, if they're done by well-trained people at the right time and backed up by good management procedures. If those aren't there, it's not going to work. And a 2-day workshop to research assistants so that they can conduct a randomised control trial is not training. It took me 10 years to know what I was doing. End of brackets. The fundamental thing is, if you're going to do debriefing, you need to do it to people who remain in role. If they fall out of role, they've gone over the cusp into trauma. And debriefing won't do them any harm if it's done by a well-trained person at the right time with a lot of sensitivity, but it won't actually stop them having a traumatic injury. Whereas if they remain in role and have a serious critical incident, they may, if not helped, have persistent post-traumatic symptomatology, intrusive memories, numbing and dissociation, etc. But if you can debrief them, you will see that a good session will change it and get the recovery process going. One session. You know, I remember doing a debrief, being asked to do a debrief with a child protection manager after a very nasty child death some years ago. And when I got the name of this person, I thought, that's vaguely familiar. When he came in, he said, do you remember me? And I said, I can remember your name and your face is familiar, but I can't quite place it. And he said, you debriefed me 10 years ago after such and such a child death, one of the very public ones. And I thought, shit, did I know what I was doing 10 years ago? And I said to him, I hope it was helpful. He said, yes. I'd actually composed my resignation letter in my mind before I came into the session. I was definitely going to leave. But as a result of our 2-hour session, I changed my mind. Because we managed to actually work out some things that allowed him to step back and not carry the responsibility for it. And if we get time after the break, which we did have lunch in a minute, we might talk about some of those techniques. But, so in fact, if debriefing is done properly in the right time with the right people, it's an extremely effective and a powerful instrument. But if people have gone out of role, it's not going to work. Because it presupposes, the whole technique presupposes a social structure, a body of knowledge and skills, and an active orientation to the problem. It's invented for emergency service workers. We can use it for welfare and health people. Anyone who's in a role, what have they tested it on? Rape victims, burns victims, miscarriages, etc. Car accident victims. Ordinary people who've had traumatic events. It's not what it's designed for, so no wonder it doesn't work that well.